on the Celtics, I think they're going to end up comfortably winning the series against New York. The whole point of the 3-pointer, whatever you want to call it, is that you're going to have games where they don't fall, but over the course of 7-game series or 82 games regular season, it all evens out once they start falling. Um, However, I I do think similar to what I was saying with the Red Sox. It is a concern for me that the Celtics players who know how to play the game did not come up in the Celtics system, because what was the big play at the end of game 1 that even gave them a chance to win that game? It was Derek White's rebound, uh, defensive rebound over, I think, Cat. And I know, like, being out toughing Cat is not an accomplishment, but he's still given up what, like 7 inches. What was the play that saved the Celtics season against the Miami Heat last year? The obviously Derek White's offensive rebound. Um, we also go to Al Horford. Al Horford is obviously a pro's pro. He knows how to play the game. And again, I just look at these
Drew
little
Holiday.
Drew Holiday. Obviously, like, you look at these little plays, and uh, these things matter in the playoffs. We've seen them matter. The White play last year, against the Heat, is a perfect example. Like that. That's one of the all-time heroic plays, and that's not something that you can draw up. That's not something you can like register in a training video or whatever it might be. And are they the reason that the Celtics are championship contenders? No, it's Brown and Tatum, obviously, but it is something that it looms a lot larger when these games matter, and having the ability to make those plays or not are the difference between winning a playoff game, losing a playoff game, winning a series or losing a series, um, or rescuing you at the last moment, as Derek White did against the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I do think that's a fair point. I mean, but it's also like, I don't know. I'm just so bored is maybe the wrong word. I just don't know what else to say about them at this point. Like they have so many stretches where they just play such dumb basketball, or what we all simpletons look at and think that has to be dumb basketball. And then after the game, Joe Mazzulla says, I liked our shot process." And then 10 hours later, Chris Forsberg puts out a tweet that says, according to the NBA's data tracking, the Celtics were 4 feet open or more on 45 of the 63s. And I'm like, I guess I'm stupid. So never mind, forget it. So I just don't know. I'm so tired of the topic of complaining about their threes. Um, I don't know where to go with it. But the turnovers and just the bad situational basketball, that sort of transcends coaches now. Like that happened a little under Stevens. It happened under Udoka. It's happening under Joe Mazzulla. So I do think, to your point, like they're just, sometimes they do play a boneheaded brand of basketball. But I just think ultimately they're too talented and too good for it to matter all that much over the course of a 7 game series. What I'm far more concerned about, and why I think they are legitimately vulnerable, is like I think this Jaylen Brown thing and the domino effect from it is huge because if I don't think teams are worried about him right now. Like if he's just basically Dwayne Wade, just mid-range jumpers at this point, because of his knee. You live with that, and then if Porzingis isn't out there, or Porzingis is kind of like in and out because of that sickness, teams are just gonna like, you know, blitz Tatum or put their best defender on him, and he's got this wrist clearly is bugging him, and I just don't know, like unless it's one of these games where he goes crazy, um, I think that leaves them really, really exposed. And especially with Porzingis out, they're in a situation now where they got to play Al Horford too much because put you can't spell him for too long with someone like Luke Cornett, and then have the Knicks have Cornett switched on to Jalen Brunson in the fourth quarter. So you have to overplay Al Horford. And so you got to manage Drew Holiday a little bit because you need him at his best against Brunson and Halliburton and whoever comes out of the West. So I just think, you know, you could manage those things if Jaylen Brown was healthy and at his best because him and Tatum together are so good. But with him limited, so much of the offensive pressure is on Tatum, and then you're less able to manage the minutes of everybody else because you need your best lineup out there to compensate for one of your stars being limited. So I think, I mean, I still think they're going to be fine against the Knicks, but like I'm definitely more entertaining like Eastern Conference exit more than I was a few weeks ago. I think I didn't take the Jaylen Brown thing seriously, and I just don't think that's going to get any better.
Yeah, that's the thing about depth, right? Is we've been talking about their depth all year, but depth depth gets challenged really quickly once you start to have injuries and those sorts
Yeah,
of
Peyton
things.
Pritchard they clearly think is unplayable in those spots. So it's like,
Yes.
you know,
Pritchard is a perfect example. I mean, he was he sixth man this year or most improved player?
six man.
Yeah, sixth man of the year. And I know you kind of get labeled a hater if you're like, yeah, Peyton Pritchard's okay. And goes, oh, he's great. When the other four guys on the floor are either current or former All Stars, somebody the defense has to let somebody get the shots, and so he gets the shots. But once you have a hobbled Brown, you have Porzingis, you have an aging Al Horford. Especially in the playoffs, the defense can key on him a lot, and his turnover, either in overtime or the fourth quarter, when he went into the lane and just got hounded, like that was bad. Like you have to realize, like you're Peyton Pritchard. You're not going to go and outmuscle three very large men in a NBA playoff game, in crunch time there, and they fell down and he lost the ball and all that. And it's like one of those, like, yeah, like they have a lot of depth, but once that sixth man now has to operate as a fourth or a third man, you realize the difference between those two roles.
Yeah, and when you short, yeah, and every team has to shorten their lineups in the playoffs. Like that just happens. No team is rolling with the same depth in the playoffs as they did in the regular season. But it's just a problem when you shorten that lineup, and then that shortened lineup includes, a couple guys who you're always managing in Holiday and Porzingis, not one guy who's almost 40 or is 40, whatever Al Horford is, and then another guy, Jaylen Brown, who clearly is only at 60%. Like, that's too many issues in a shortened lineup. That, like, again, I think they can survive it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but like I think they're definitely vulnerable. And I am a Jason Tatum defender, like as much as the next guy. But at the end of the day, I question whether he's good enough to carry like a hobbled and sort of vulnerable team all the way, like just basically on him by himself. I don't know quite if he has that in him, especially if like his shot's not falling. So I don't know. That game, I'm probably overreacting. I mean, like Cleveland just went down 0-2. The Nuggets lost game one. Celtics lost a game to the Cavs last year, and then they trounced the rest of the way. But it's like, I don't know. I think there was a lot of stuff in that game that should make people concerned.
That is the funny thing is as much as that one loss can raise concern, in other ways things are kind of falling into place for the Celtics. The Cavaliers have injury issues. They're obviously struggling in their series. So yeah, it's almost like, well, now their top challenger is hurt, is hobbled. I think they're better than the Knicks. We know they're better than the Pacers, at least talent wise. So yeah, on the flip side, as much as sky might be falling, you also got to look at it like, yeah, the circumstances are pretty much falling into place.
Yeah, they just have to like get by. That's why it was big for them to get those 5 days off after the Magic series. Like, I just don't think they can afford a long series. Like, I think they need to find a way to either gentleman sweep or six game against the Knicks. Same thing in the next round. Like, I just don't know if they can withstand like one or two grueling series before getting to the finals. Like, I just don't know if they'll hold up.
And I think it's kind of also worrisome that you say, well, they just got to get by, because like there's nothing inspiring about that as a fan. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you're not going in like, oh, I believe they can win. You're like, oh, I think we just need to get by and we can win. We can back into a championship. It's like, oh, well, all right, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know. It is. I just again, the problem was that I think the stuff that was bad in that first game is stuff that I don't know how much better it's going to get. Like I'm sure they're going to make an adjustment for game 2, and they're not going to leave themselves exposed on those switches on Brunson in the fourth quarter as bad. Um, I have to believe they'll shoot better. Um, but it's just I do and yeah, it's not like an inspiring way, but I do think it's just like it's kind of survival mode right now. The good thing is like they're talented enough where like they can play survival mode and still gentlemen sweep you. Um, but like again, I just like I worry like Brown does not look good. So I just wonder like what's he going to look like, and if he has to play this many minutes because what the rest of the lineup looks like, what's he going to look like if they make it to the finals? Um, when you have teams that are much better than the Knicks but can play that style and make the Celtics uncomfortable. Like, everybody looked at that Magic series and said, wow, they really got up in the Celtics' face. They made them uncomfortable, made them play on their terms. They just weren't good enough to win. And I think the Knicks had a similar playbook in game 1. I just don't know if they're good enough to carry it through a 7-game series and beat the Celtics 4 times. But I do think teams like the Nuggets and the Thunder are good enough to make the Celtics similarly uncomfortable, but finish the job over a long series. Um, so I don't know. I'm worried about the Celtics.